Let's be honest, sovereignty is not a word that is often used by most people day to day, but there's an underlying idea which is really simple to understand. Who actually controls the decisions that govern our future? Is it the people who are elected there to the Houses of Parliament, or is it shared with other people? Now, if you're someone who wants to leave the EU, you think the idea that all decisions are taken by elected British members of Parliament is very important. You may think it's absolutely vital that all decisions, legal decisions, are taken in British courts. If you're someone who's willing to remain in the EU, though, you can see the value of sharing sovereignty. In other words, the idea that we can do more together than we can do separately. After all, by being members of what's called NATO, the North Atlantic Treaty Organisation, we actually agree to go to war on behalf of other countries. They, of course, will go on to war on behalf of us. So we do share some pretty big decisions in the world. So if you're in favour of staying in the EU, you may say, look, it's much easier for us to do negotiations with Iran over its nuclear programme, to negotiate with Russia about pulling back from Ukraine, to have a row with the mobile phone companies about getting their roaming charges down in Europe, if we share something. But of course, that comes at a price that sometimes will get outvoted in Europe, sometimes in Brussels. There may be a court, there may be a bureaucrat that tells British members of Parliament, British judges, British people to do things they don't like. Most voters say that they want immigration to be controlled. That doesn't necessarily mean they want it stopped. It doesn't necessarily mean they want it to be much, much lower than it is now. But they like the idea that someone's in charge, that there are rules that are met, that people who come here to work. They don't just come here to claim benefits. Now, there's no doubt that if you're out of the EU, it's a little bit easier to have control. Why? Because one of the principles of the EU is that we can move to any of the 27 other countries to get work. It's a freedom that many of us enjoy. But equally, of course, it means that people can come here, whether it's from France or Spain, from Poland or Romania, because they're looking for work as well. And that makes it harder for a government to control the numbers coming into the country. On the other hand, if we simply left the EU, it is extraordinarily unlikely that we would stop immigration just like that. Why? Because businesses often demand to have immigrants coming in to do the jobs that either people in Britain don't want to do, badly paid, hard-working jobs like picking the fruit in the fields, for example, or very highly skilled jobs when perhaps there just aren't enough high-quality, highly educated in Britain to take those jobs. And at the moment, there are actually slightly more people who came here from outside Europe than there are who came here from inside Europe. So yes, if we were to leave the EU, ministers would have a few more levers they could pull, but they'd still be under huge pressure from British businesses to say, we need more people, maybe not from Europe, maybe from outside. Now, what would it mean for Britain if we were to leave the EU? The honest answer is no one knows for sure. It is a step into the unknown. Those people who want to leave are optimists. What they say is, look, Britain is the 5th largest economy in the world. It's also a powerful country that has a seat on the United Nations Security Council, has one of the largest military forces in the world, and therefore we would succeed perfectly well outside the EU. We would form a new relationship with Europe, and we'd be freer to form our own relationships with the Indians, with the Chinese, with other growing economies as well. The people who want us to remain are a little bit more worried, though. They say that the EU might punish us for the fact that we leave. They might put what are called tariffs, taxes if you like, on the goods that we want to buy and sell from here to the EU. And in addition, they fear that us leaving will weaken Europe just at a time we need to be strong, to stand up to a resurgent Russia, to negotiate with countries like Iran over their nuclear programme. And therefore, this is a decision that people are making, which is in part about what sort of country we want to be.